Hi all, I'm Trisha Peach, host of the Kidmin.Ninja, and I'm so excited you came back to see us again this week. I have been off for a little bit. Some of you know, saw that on my social media. I had a pretty bad accident. I fell down a very steep flight of stairs. It's my own fault. I was wearing super cute shoes and I wasn't holding the railing and I was carrying way too much stuff. Anyone who knows me knows that's how I am, which I will do better next time, I promise. I'm not going to do this again, but you can still see, I'm planning not to do this again, but I had my stitches out and you can't hardly see where they had to stitch me up. But thank you to everybody that has reached out, that has been so kind. I am getting better one day at a time. I'm about 2 weeks out. My family's been wonderful. My husband, my daughter, Logan's off at college. He's home this week for spring break, which is awesome. He's been cheering me up. He's like, can't hardly tell anymore, Mom. Yeah, I landed at the bottom on a fish tank base, face first. So my face has been pretty scary for a while. But it's good to be back and doing what I love. So I wanted to talk about the pulpit appeal. The pulpit appeal for volunteers. We all need volunteers right now. I'm starting recruiting for summer VBSs, things like that. We need volunteers all the time. So you need volunteers constantly. You're going to have volunteers. Why do you need so many in kids ministry? Well, you can't just have anybody in there with children. You're going to have to background check. You're going to have to follow ratios, meaning you can't have one person in there with 20 toddlers. You shouldn't have one person in there at all. You have to have two. So if you have a growing kids church, especially, you are always going to have to be recruiting. Always. People, I hate to say it, they die, they move away, they fall down a whole flight of stairs. You're going to have to always be recruiting. And for a lot of churches, the only way that they knew to recruit was from a pulpit appeal, which is kind of a cattle call. You get up front and you say, hey, we need volunteers in kids ministry, sign up on the sign-up sheet that we're passing around. There are a lot of pitfalls from a pulpit appeal for volunteers, and a lot of churches are moving away from it. There's a lot of dangers of pulpit appeals, but I am still a huge proponent of keeping pulpit appeals for volunteers, and I'm going to explain why. So I'd love to get this discussion going. You can say below why you agree, why you disagree. We're still going to be friends. But first, let's talk about some of the pitfalls. Why is it kind of dangerous to do pulpit appeals for children's ministry volunteers? And secondly, I'll give you my reasons why I'm still for it. So number one reason that churches are moving away from pulpit appeals for volunteers is that you can attract all kinds of people who should not be in kids ministry. So this, like I said, it's an open cattle call. So anyone, they're all signing up, and you're going to have to go through those signups. And this can be exacerbated, made 10 times worse if this was handled poorly. If the person that was up there, either the senior leader or the kids leader, said something to the effect of, we're desperate, we need anyone, literally anyone, anyone sign up, we'll find a place for you, anyone. And then you do a check on this person and they cannot work with kids legally, or they have anger management problems, or they're not at a point yet that in their Christian walk that they should be anywhere near kids. Now you're in a huge dilemma because you just got up front and said, we are desperate, we need anyone except you. So that leads to hurt feelings. That leads to, okay, you sound like you lied to me because you said anyone, but then not me. So I always advise churches that are using the upfront push for volunteers to say, we would like you to apply. We would like you to apply. Not everyone can serve in kids ministry, but we would like you to apply. And that way, if you say, I'm sorry, it's not going to work out for you to be in kids ministry, find another place in the church for you to serve, because not everyone can serve in kids ministry. So that's the number one, is you will get many signups that you cannot use. Also, you'll have people, you know who I mean, that sign up for absolutely everything, and they're already way too committed, and they're not big into kids ministry, but they just sign up for everything in the whole church. So you're going to get people that shouldn't be serving kids ministry, people that just aren't going to work out. So that's the number one reason churches are moving away from an open cattle call. The second reason would be, and this one I kind of laugh at, I was serving in a very large church of 3,000, and I had 275 volunteers, somewhere around there. So the thinking went, we can't do a pulpit appeal for kids ministry volunteers because what about all the other departments? And there were literally, 50 some other departments. So they're saying it's going to be nothing but begging for volunteers, an hour from the pulpit every week, and it'll never end. But I quote Andy Stanley on that. Whoever said we had to give equal time? Who said we had to be fair? Think about this. The kids ministry is one of the only ones that operates at the same time as the main service and is often its own space where people don't know, and out of sight, out of mind. That is a space that needs more volunteers and better volunteers than you would use anywhere else in the church. You have to have really great leaders in there. So I would say, no, you don't have to give equal time to every single area of the church. So, because they'll say, well, I have to be fair. So if kids ministry gets to make an appeal for VBS, then I have to give equal time to the women's sewing group, and I have to give equal time to the snowshoeing group. And no, you don't. And your kids ministry, though, you guys all know this, was that 92% of the churches in the United States are in decline. The few that are growing and moving forward are investing time and effort and budget dollars into their kids ministry, period, full stop. So if you want to see that kids ministry go forward, it can never be self-sustaining. You're going to have to give it some push from the main service. You're going to have to give it some push. So those are the first two. You're going to get everybody in the world, some of them that shouldn't be in kids ministry. Two, it might seem unfair to the other departments that you're letting kids ministry make a pulpit push. That's another reason why they turn away from it. A third reason would be people complaining that they never got a call back. Our pastor pastor at my last church almost stopped allowing any pulpit calls for volunteers because the team that was in place at the time was doing a horrible job on follow-up and weren't calling people back. And some people got so hardened, they said, I'll never volunteer for the kids ministry again because I keep signing up and they never call me back, and now I'm hurt. And they would tell the pastor how hurt they were. And no matter what you think of that, we had to do a better job and be more responsible. So if you're up there asking for people to sign up for kids ministry and you won't even give them a call back, you don't deserve to have more volunteers. Those volunteers can go to somewhere where they are appreciated. And I drilled that home with my leaders. I said, pastor's giving us one chance. We get to make an appeal for volunteers. They sign up. We're going to, within 6 days, we're calling every single person on that list, twice if we have to. It doesn't matter. No excuses. No excuses. We cleared time and we got in there and called every single one of them back. So they could say they didn't get a call back, but we logged it. We logged when we called. Sometimes we also tried email, but picking up the phone and calling has a lot of power. So if you fumble on the follow-up, that is a huge drawback to allowing for pulpit appeals. So if you ask people to volunteer and they sign up for more information, you need to call them back. Don't make excuses. Call them back, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but you need to call them back. A fourth reason is, all by itself, your pulpit appeals will never reach the whole congregation. I know this is depressing, but I talk to kids pastors a lot that say, well, I made a pulpit appeal once and we didn't get many volunteers, or I got one. Hey, thank God for that one. But the reason that is ineffective, if that's all you're doing, is the average committed Christian family in the U.S. goes to church 1 to 2 Sundays a month, and they consider that actively engaged. So they're 1 or 2 Sundays a month. And so if you make that appeal, you probably missed at least 50% of the congregation because the rest were not there. So it's not going to reach the whole congregation. And you have the people that are zoned out during announcements. You have those that went to the bathroom. You have your whole crew that were working in kids ministry that weren't in there to hear what you said. One pulpit appeal is not going to reach the whole congregation. You're only going to get a certain part of the congregation. So it has to be done in conjunction with many other recruitment methods. And if you're wondering, there's no other recruitment methods? Yes, there are. I'll put my book down below. I used to recruit for ASC Security Mall of America before I became a children's pastor. Recruitment's something I've had to do a lot of, and I'm clear in my book on what worked and what didn't and what strategies that really seem to work for getting leaders. So you have to be thinking a whole comprehensive method. So while some churches are moving away from doing pulpit appeals completely, I am not. I still believe in them. Why? Why, when we have all these drawbacks, do I still believe in doing pulpit appeals? Well, number one, my district leader said it best many years back, said, visibility lends credibility. So when you have a pulpit appeal made, especially if your senior leader makes that call saying we need leaders for VBS, or we need kids ministry leaders for our pre-K program, it's awesome, it just got going, that lends credibility. What that says is to the congregation, wow, our senior leader cares about this, our church cares about this, this is important. If there's nothing said from the pulpit, like I said, out of sight, out of mind. And if the kids ministry leader is expected to recruit, but they're never in the main service, they're never mentioned from the main service, they're always in kids ministry, so they can't even mingle with the adults when people are coming in, you're asking them to make bricks with no straw. This is almost an impossibility. So if the senior leader and the church leadership will put their weight behind the kids ministry, it will help the whole church grow. And remember, if you're talking, okay, a healthy kids ministry is 25% of any church. If you have a healthy kids ministry, it should be 25% of your church, 0 to 12. But then you have all those volunteers, all those parents, all those grandparents. So children's ministry typically affects at least 60% of any church or more. 60%. So that's why it needs that oomph. It needs the leadership to get behind it publicly. Secondly, the main win of a pulpit appeal is you get a chance to talk about your successes and your testimonies. Again, out of sight, out of mind. If they don't know what God is doing in there, how are they going to know? How will they know unless there's a preacher to tell them? Just about everything else is happening in that main sanctuary, so people see it and hear it, and pastor talks about it. The kids ministry, they don't know anything but what you tell them. So a pulpit appeal, fantastic way to let people know what's happening in the main service. Hey, here's where your budget dollars are going. Here's where these leaders are working tirelessly. Here's where kids are coming to Christ. That is your chance. I always say, if you get a chance to do a pulpit appeal, get those testimonies in. Get those testimonies in. They need to be heard by the congregation as a whole. So I would say, if you have a chance to do a pulpit appeal, if your pastor still allows you to, or your pastor says he will or she will, go speak to those kids, those volunteers. Do it. Take that opportunity and speak well. Lead with a testimony, end with a testimony of what God is doing in there. Don't make it desperate. Don't say anyone sign up. No. Say you can apply to be a part of what's going on, and here's what's going on. It's amazing. It's exciting. Our church is behind it. The church leadership is behind it. This is our vision. This is where we're going with it. And then every single person that signs up, you follow up. no exceptions. And then as many chances as pastor gives you, you take it. Yes, yep, you got it. I'll be ready. And make it polished, make it sharp. If you have some video elements, that would make it even better. All right, so that's what I think. What do you think? Do you think we should not be doing pulpit appeals anymore at all for volunteers? Do you think it's still a good idea? What other methods do you use to recruit? Thank you all for what you do for Jesus and his kids. I'm Dr. Tricia Peach, and I will see you all next week on the Kidmin Not Ninja. Bye-bye.